Good afternoon, Pat.
Good afternoon, Sam. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's happy to talk sumo between Bashos. Finally, we have time to do a non Basho episode. Um,
I know we've been talking about this forever.
like since we started, we were like, oh, we want to talk
Pretty
about
much.
the history, which is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talking about the history of the Gyoji
Oh,
and why
the
they
history of the
are
Gyoji.
why they are the way they are.
Yeah, well, they are certainly characters,
Mhm.
and I am very curious to hear what you have to say. Sam's going to be doing a little history lesson for us.
Yeah, so I'm a huge,
Um,
huge history nerd.
that's a true story.
Both my bachelor's and master's are in history, so like this is kind of a really being able to apply my academic abilities, which I mean, don't look at my grades. We don't have to talk about that. But
No, no, we're not,
my
we're not,
love
we're
of
not, we're not pulling the
history,
grade.
my
We're
love of
not pulling the grades
sumo
up.
match together. Pat, you speak a few words of Japanese.
Height.
What does gyoji mean?
I have no idea.
Oh, so I guess you don't speak as much as I thought.
I don't. I do. I actually know. I do not know what the word Gyoji stands for. No, I don't
So it
know.
means
Enlighten
administering
me.
things.
Ah,
Yeah. So,
okay.
and as I talk about this, you'll see why that name is very fitting because they do a lot more than just referee the bout. And it is my thesis for this YouTube video, if you can call it a
Yeah,
thesis, that without the Gyoji, sumo might not even exist anymore. So,
interesting.
there's two specific times I'll talk about why I think that is. So, referees have been around in all sports, especially combat sports. They're always necessary. Modern aspects of the modern day Gyoji began in the late 16th century. Um, Before that, different officials could be responsible. The farthest back we can go to be like, hey, this is a defining moment that set up modern day Gyoji goes back to 724, 749 when Emperor Shomu ruled. So 724, not 1724, 1300 years ago.
Right.
Um, he appointed Shigano Serin to be one of the first hereditary lines of Gyoji. And the reason why I bring up Shigano Serin is because he is credited with defining the original 48 sumo moves. Um,
Oh, whoa.
yeah. And so in this hereditary line of Gyoji, so up until modern day, you had to be born into a samurai class who were the ruling class of feudal Japan. We think of samurai as the warrior sword fighters, which they were, but they're also the ruling class of Japan, so more than just sword fighters. But um, moving forward to Oda Nobunaga, who was one of the great generals of Japanese history, he ruled as shogun from 1534, or he lived from 1534 to 1582, so just under 500 years ago now. He used wrestling to train his troops. I mean, he just loved it, right? He was
Right.
obsessed with sumo. He held a tournament in 1578 that had supposedly over 1,500 participants.
Whoa.
So, yeah, he's
He was
always
a true dozo boy, you might say.
yeah. Anyway, so after him during the Tokugawa shogunate, so Emperor Tokugawa or Shogun Tokugawa Ieyasu, so if you've seen or read Shogun, the big series hit series right now,
Hmm. Hmm.
Toranaga is based off of Tokugawa Ieyasu. Well, the
Mm.
emperor banned traditional tournaments that were these sumo tournaments that were as part of festivals in an effort to moralize society because what happened at these festivals, especially in the prefectures and villages, a lot of non-regulated wrestling bouts on the street corners in these villages just turned into all-out brawls, and people
Right.
died in these brawls. So the daimyo started sponsoring local events to kind of keep it alive, and one of the ways they did that was with the gyoji, and they used gyoji, kind of turned them into pseudo Shinto priests, and they started incorporating Shinto aspects into sumo. Um,
Hmm.
So they relied on these Gyoji hereditary lines, these Gyoji families, to teach etiquette rules and techniques to the Rikishi. Um, and then, so just some aspects that you still see today that are actually Shinto. When the wrestler performs the doyo iri, so the ring entering ceremony, and they clap their hands, that's how you start a prayer in Shinto because you are calling attention to the gods that you are here. Um, they sprinkling salt onto the doyo like every fighter does from just a trickle to a LeBron,
Yeah.
is to purify the ring, and that's salt in Shinto. Salt is purifying uh, material. So the referees became pseudo priests in their own way and continued more of a religious ceremony rather than an immoral popular event. So another example is that the day before uh, Basho, Gyoji burned salt, kelp, dried squid, and chestnuts in the center of the doyo, and then they bury it. And so they still do that to this day.
Hmm.
Um, and then they pour sake on the straw. So it's all very religious. And the white rope of a yokozuna, and okay, another. What does yokozuna mean in Japanese? Do you remember, or do you know?
Oh, God, you're asking me the questions that I'm not going to have the answers for. Okay, if I'm answering as if like trying to figure it out, I would assume it's something to do with like a leader or a boss.
So it means horizontal rope.
Okay,
And the reason being why horizontal rope is in
not
Shinto.
even close.
No, so I'm getting there. Like indirectly, marking something off with a horizontal white rope, like a big tree, marks it
Right.
as a living deity, as a living like minor god. So when Yokozuna wear these white ropes, it is saying that they are living gods, basically. So not far off on your assessment.
Hmm, I'll take it.
So two predominant Gyoji lines that kind of started to dominate feudal Japan sumo were the houses of Yoshida, Tsukasa, and Gojo. So by the late 1700s, each different prefecture had slightly different rules and ceremonies, which is understandable since it was banned nationally. So it became a lot more localized. So it was a lot more local uh, traditions were involved. But these two families kind of dominated, and their main like customs spread out. Uh, and started organizing and running most of the events. And during the last century of the Edo period, so we're talking like mid 1800s now, sumo started
Right.
to become really popular again. The Edo based Sumo Association, who became the JSA later on, began to dominate. And they began a long period where they assimilated all the other associations, including their Gyoji lines, led by the Yoshida Tsukasa clan. So just over 100, over 100 years later now, this clan is still running the technique and etiquette of sumo. The modern day Gyoji with the ceremonial kimono and gunbai, the war fan that they use, began in this period.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and when the judges come together for a monoi, I'll talk a little more at this later. They say gunbai dori, which means according to the gunbai, so the Gyoji was right, or gunbai sasichigai, which means the gunbai was mispointed. So
Right.
yeah, and then Gyoji also use something like a Shikona, so a ring name that they take on. It's slightly different. It's similar to Rikishi, because it's not their born given name, and they can be named after older Gyoji or other hereditary members of the Gyoji clan. They also belong to a sumo stable, so they are trained in one of the hereditary lines, but then they live in a stable with wrestlers. So they either take the name Kimura or Shikimori, um, which are based off of these older two hereditary line clans that took over all hereditary lines in Japan. So the leader is Kimura Shonosuke. That is like the highest ranked Gyoji.
Right.
And anytime someone moves up into that position, they take on that name. And then the second is Shikimori, Shikimori Inosuke. That is the second highest. And within these two lines, the referees, the reason why is because these two men, Kimura Shinosuke and Shikimori Godayu, sought patronage from the Yoshida clan in the 1720s, who were kind of the strongest clan at the time. And now all other referee lines are extinct. And there's actually a way to tell which family the Gyoji trained under
Ooh.
when you're watching a sumo bout.
Okay.
When they point to a winner, Kimura family referees have the back of their hand facing up, and Shikimori Gyoji have their palm up. So
No way.
it's not just preference. It is that means where they which line they trained under.
That
Um,
is so subtle. I love
yeah,
it.
and so I tried to look up like, hey, were there? The other Gyoji lines have been extinct for like 200 plus years, but I was like, oh, are there were there other ways that made those Gyoji separate from modern day from the other two lines? Unfortunately, I couldn't find anything.
Hmm.
Whether it's how they pointed the fan or even like if they wore something different, which is unfortunate. I'm sure there, I tried to find like what made them unique compared to the others, but I couldn't really find anything other than uh, multiple sources just saying, oh, they just did things differently. So I would have liked to have known.
Right.
It would have been cool to think like, oh, what if this was still incorporated? But unfortunately, no.
Not the
Yeah.
case.
So there can only be 45 Gyoji at one time. They
Through all the ranks.
through all the ranks. They recruit teenagers who have finished junior high. They used to recruit 6 and 7 year olds,
Wow.
but
Oh
now
my
it's
god.
yeah. So about 14, 15 years old is when they are recruited, and they promote up the ranks as well. Again, same names as uh, Rikshi, except for or same ranks except for Yokozuna. So Jonakuchi, Jonidan, Sandanme,
Mhm.
Makushita, Juryo, Makuchi, Sanyaku, and then Tate Gyoji. The Tate Gyoji are the two highest ranking Gyoji who are named after the founders of the two lines. And once they reach Sandanme rank, they can move out of the stables that they were living in. How long that takes, it doesn't matter how good of a Gyoji you are. It matters on other people retiring.
Right, of
So,
course.
I mean, except for like, I think except for like the top ranks, that's when your ability really starts to come into it. Just because if someone isn't all that good, they may be kind of slightly told, "Hey, you may want to retire, so we don't want." If they have like a checkered past of calls, maybe they don't want them as a Tate Gyoji. I mean, that's kind of a um, unconfirmed type rumor thing. But either way,
Right.
it just comes down to you only move up when older guys retire. So, for example, there was a Sumo Primetime video last year where
Yeah,
Hiro,
recently.
yeah, Hiro, is that his name?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he went to a talk with a Juryo level Gyoji who was in his mid 40s. So he'd been in it for 30 plus years and he was at the Juryo level. So, I mean, it's a lifetime. The guys are in it for 50 years.
Right.
Now, as they promote, they now bounce between the two families. The Kimura is the more prestigious of the two. So the top ranked Gyoji is named after Kimura Shonosuke. Um, and the one who he just retired, he was the 38th Kimura Shinosuke. He was from the Takadagawa stable, Hideki Imaoka. Only the Shinosuke can administer Yokozuna bouts. So a little fun fact there.
Right,
It's
right. That
always the
makes
same.
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's always that same guy doing that, or only the Tate Gyoji. So, um, yeah, the other Tate Gyoji is the 42nd Shikimori Inosuke, so the second ranked,
Mhm.
second highest ranked. He since the 38th just retired. The 42nd Shikimori Inosuke, Yuji Horosawa, will take over as the 39th Kimura Shinosuke in January. So kind of bouncing up and down there, right?
Right. Yeah.
So one of the things that got me into sumo was, I mean, the outfits that they wore, right? Like, I think
Oh
when we
yeah.
went, I took a picture of like every Gyoji just because of how awesome their outfits were, which is of course strictly dictated and goes back centuries, right? Um,
Right.
so it's the outfit is based off of two periods: the Muromachi period, the 1300s to 1500s, and elements from the high end period, which was the 700s to the 1100s. So, you know, just pretty typical for all sports going back 1200 years. Um, the current style was dictated in 1910, and during the Meiji Restoration in the late 1800s, when the samurai lost their status, got their swords taken away, and the samurai were abolished, um, they lost their top knots as well, the chanmage. So only sumo wrestlers were allowed to keep it in all of Japan, and it's kind of a big deal. Now, to cover up for the fact that Gyoji didn't have chanmage, they started wearing their hats, which is an eboshi. It is a Shinto priest hat. So that is just another element of going back so far. They normally wear colors appropriate to the seasons. So thinking brighter colors in spring, darker colors in winter, and even the material is dictated by your rank, and the colors you're allowed to wear are dictated by your rank.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So the bottom four ranks, Jonakuchi through Makushita, they wear cotton and they can only wear green or black, and they don't wear socks or sandals. They're walking around in bare feet. Um,
Oh, right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then when they go into Juryo, they can start wearing silk and um, thick silk in the winter and linen in the summer, and then they can wear green and white or black and white. So now they can wear white as well, and they wear socks, no sandals. We're not in sandals yet.
No,
Um,
of course not.
Makuchi Gyoji can wear red now.
Hmm.
No sandals still. Only Sanyaku and Tate Gyoji are allowed to wear sandals, and they are allowed. Sanyaku can wear vermilion, and then only the Tatagyoji, so the Shikimori Inosuke and Kimura Shonosuke, can wear purple. Just
Hmm.
like so many other cultures, purple is kind of the most prestigious color, and they can wear sandals. So Sanyaku and above can wear those sandals, right? Now,
Right.
um, talking about ceremonial objects that they have. Um, Sanyaku can have and above can have an inro, which is a little ceremonial carrying case. You'll see that sometimes it's either usually tied on the waist, like a
Oh
little
yeah, yeah.
ceremonial box. It's about that big. I'm not quite sure what they
I
have in
got
it.
I got to get one of those.
Yeah, and then what is the other object? That's it's a bit of a apocryphal tale about that the Gyoji have tucked into their waistband, like the top level guys have, in case they
Oh,
get a call wrong.
don't they have a knife?
Yeah, they have a Tonto dagger, so they
Right.
can commit ceremonial suicide if they get the call
Hmm.
wrong. Now, there's no instances of one ever committing suicide, but it's to show how serious they are, or potentially to fight off people. There was one instance in the mid 1800s where in Osaka, a an elder attacked the Gyoji because he disagreed with the call, and the Gyoji used the Tonto to fight him off. So
Wow.
yeah,
Hey, you
um,
never know. You never
you
know.
never
It could
know
happen. Could happen
exactly.
again. They have to be prepared for that. It's true.
Yeah, so I mean, even outside of the ring, they Gyoji preside kind of over all aspects. They write the Banzuke posters. If you're watching, you haven't seen the Banzuke, just search it up. It's
Oh,
very
all right.
very well done, very beautiful, very thick calligraphy, and the thickness is actually comes from Shinto as well. It's a metaphor. They leave very little space in there with the thick lines. They want it to be a full arena. They want to have as many spectators as they can. That's what the thickness. It's a very distinct thick calligraphy that they write with. Um,
Yeah, it's like an outrageous amount of characters on a small piece of paper.
yeah. So they also do a public ceremony with the JSA elders and Makuchi wrestlers the day before Basho, and then they will in their own stables they will lead lower ranked wrestlers a private ceremony the day before Basho as well as Shinto ceremony. They preside over the ring entering ceremonies, Yokozuna ceremony. The Tategyoji consecrates the ring with Shinto priests. I already talked about them burning and pouring sake. They do that. And then the closing ceremony after the Basho, a Gyoji is tossed up in the air by the lower ranked wrestlers in a sending off ceremony for the gods.
I
So
don't
that's
think
a
I've seen that one.
yeah. So it's a little bit of fun. Last couple things. The Gyoji always stand in the north when they're administering a bout, and when where they hold their fan. So you'll see them. They'll be turned face one way. They'll be turned we'll try it again. So how when they turn and face another way, that is when it signifies how much longer till the bout starts, and then when they're facing in, that's when it's time to go.
Right.
Gyoji watch that the breathing is in sync for the wrestlers, otherwise he will call a false start. Now, interestingly, Gyoji must always make a call. They cannot be the ones to say, "Hey, let's have a Monoi." I'm not sure. They have to always make a call. So if judges, the Shimpan disagree, that's when they call a Monoi.
Right.
And
Hence.
yeah, if they say it's correct, incorrect, or they do a rematch. So sometimes watching you kind of think like, oh man, how could the Gyoji point that way? Maybe maybe he's just because they can only see what they can see,
Right, like
and
he knows it's gonna be a mono E, so he just like makes a call to get it out
yeah,
there.
yeah, or just from their point of view, maybe they didn't see a toe that touched out or something. That's always understandable. So yeah, they just always have to make the call, which was an interesting thing. Normally a lot of other sports is the referees who are saying like, hey, let's take another look at this, but in
Right.
sumo, it's these other judges who do. So that was really most. I mean, that was all the information I had. The main two reasons I think that sumo is still around because of the Gyoji is the first time I mentioned when, in an effort to moralize society, the emperor banned sumo. Um, and then the local daimyos utilized the Gyoji, turned them into Shinto priests, basically, to keep sumo. Um, and so without the Gyoji, there wouldn't have been sumo. And then during the 1800s as well, when there was another push to get rid of the samurai and a lot of that traditional way of life, more use of the Gyoji to preside over things and make it so, hey, even though this is a holdover from feudal Japan, um, this is still a Shinto religious. It's more of a religious private or not private, religious formal ceremony, as opposed to a warmongering fighting uh, thing, not thing like event.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I had.
No,
Figured it's some good fun information out there.
that's I mean that's super interesting. I mean I've always wondered about the outfit. I mean the outfits are obviously the most striking thing that you see immediately, but it's really cool to hear about like the subtleties and it's so clear that it's steeped in history because like the things they do are so like I don't know, like even the way they speak and the way they act is very like old school. Like they don't really speak in like modern Japanese. Like when they repeat wrestlers' names, like it kind of has a different like affliction to it.
Mm-hmm.
So you can tell that it's so steeped in the tradition, but it's really cool to hear some of the details about that.
Yeah, so I mean, this was fun for me to research, look into. So I'm looking forward to other things we're going to dive into. But
Yeah, and then my only thing I wanted to throw in, I had to Google it because I was curious, but I was curious as to how much money they make.
I
Um,
don't know. Were you able to find out?
I found a very simple article, citation possibly needed. But this article says that the top Gyoji ranks earn 500,000 yen. I'm assuming that means a month, which is not a lot of money.
How much is that in
That's
dollars?
like close to $4,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's not a lot,
Mm-hmm.
relatively speaking, for such like a prestigious thing. I mean, it could even be per tournament. It's possible. Like that might not even be
Yeah.
like a salary thing. It's possible that they only get that per tournament. But it's really not surprising. A lot of these like high ranking things. I mean, sumo wrestlers can make a lot of money through sponsorships. Um, but I wouldn't be surprised if these people work tirelessly for 40 years to make $4,000 a tournament.
Yeah, that's or like a month. Yeah, that's
Right.
I mean, yeah, it's for the love of the game. So
It is, and we're very grateful for them.
we are. We wouldn't have sumo without them.
Indeed. All right. Well, we got the next tournament coming up in
A month.
1 month, which I'm actually very excited about this tournament.
Yeah, me
Looking
too.
forward to the new year.
Yeah, we'll have another preview episode for that.
Sounds good. Well, I will see you then.
All right, sounds good. I'll talk to you later.
Signing off.
All right, bye
Thanks,
everyone. Thanks for
everyone.
watching.